I'm Hannah, this is Cece and Allie, and we're here with Brandy to talk about Pause for People. So, tell us about the connection with Bailey Middle School and what your experience was like during your time here.
So I started at Bailey Middle School back in 2011, and I was here from 6th grade and halfway through 8th grade. Personally, I felt very grateful to be surrounded by staff in this school who are just so supportive, and they do everything for their students that they possibly can. But it was challenging. Around that time, I was dealing with a lot of mental health issues, anxiety, depression, and a lot of that really took off in middle school. So halfway through 8th grade, I had to start homeschooling because it became so stressful for me. Despite that, my experience at Bailey was always very, very happy one, and was something that I was very grateful to be able to meet some of the people who were very kind.
We as middle schoolers struggle quite a bit these days with comparing ourselves to others, whether it be academically, physically, or materially, which leads to anxiety, insecurities, and depressions. Do you or others experience this during your middle school years?
Absolutely. I know, speaking for myself and many of my friends, we all struggled with a lot of insecurities, and a lot of my friends were also going through different mental health concerns like anxiety or depression. And for me, I think it comes down to is when you're in middle school, not only are you transitioning from elementary school, which is totally different, but you're also now at an age where your body is changing, your brain is developing, and so you're learning so much about yourself in such a short period of time. Yet at the same time, even though everyone in middle school shares that journey, everyone's journey looks so different. And so trying not to compare yourself to other people can be such a challenge. And I know for me that was a huge challenge. I had a hard time making friends, and so I would compare myself to other people in that regard. I would compare myself to how I looked because I was very small when I was a middle schooler and everybody else shot up and they were super tall. There were a lot of things that I had to really hone in on myself and think about, I need to support myself for exactly how I am rather than look at other people.
Thank you. Can you tell us how it came about that you ended up with your first service dog?
Sure. Like I mentioned, I struggled with my mental health through middle school, and it started getting at a point where it became debilitating in my life. It took opportunities away from me when I was around 17. So I asked my mom and my dad if I could go see a therapist. From there, I talked to my therapist, and she recommended an emotional support animal, which is different from service animals, but I started my research on it, and it just kind of happened that I ran into a service dog trainer one day. She was telling me all about how service dogs are not just for people with different medical conditions, but they're also for people with mental health conditions. So she taught me all about the world of what we call psychiatric service dogs who help people with their mental health. And she was able to help me train my first service dog, who was a psychiatric service dog.
Can you share with us how having a service dog has benefited you?
Yes. So when I first got my first service dog, like I said, he helped me with my mental health. So he would alert me before I had anxiety attacks or panic attacks. He would help me through panic attacks because for me, mine could last upwards of a couple hours, and I couldn't get out of it without his help. And he would do things for me that would help me do day-to-day tasks. So he would fetch items off the floor, try to get me moving. That was a huge help in and of itself. But for me, I learned over my journey that my mental health came down to physical issues. So I had a problem with my brain. It's called PANS or PANDAS, and it's a type of autoimmune encephalitis. So in other words, my body was attacking my own brain, and it was causing my brain to become inflamed. So what started as mental health symptoms turned into neurological symptoms. At that point, I was able to get Momo here. He's my second service dog, and he was able to help me with not only the mental health symptoms, but now these neurological symptoms. He could alert to seizures. He could help me walk when I had trouble walking. And he was always there to help go grab somebody in my family if I was ever in a position of danger. So through my journey, having different kinds of service dogs, I've seen the wide variety of ways that they can help you.
That's awesome. We were told that you eventually made a connection to brain health and how it impacts your moods, energy, focus, and more. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yes, absolutely. So when I started dealing with neurological issues, I remember I would always say to myself, there's something wrong with my brain. And I was already super fascinated by psychology when I was growing up, but having these struggles now made me interested in neuroscience itself. So I started reading everything I could, and I came across this book that talked all about how a lot of the things that we do nowadays can inflict harm onto our brain. The way that we use technology, we're not as active as we used to be. The way that we eat, our nutrition. And slowly, one by one, I started to work on those aspects of my life and saw a major difference. For example, I ate gluten for 20 years before I realized that my body had an intolerance to it. When I really sat down and I looked at my diet and I cut out things like gluten that for my body was not good, things like excessive sugar, artificial colors and flavors, it made a drastic difference in my anxiety, in my depression, and my overall health. Alongside that, adding in more exercise, even if it was something like yoga, super easy, mild exercise, and thinking about what I'm exposed to on a day-to-day basis, what I like to call toxins. So cleaning products and a lot of the things that we put in our face wash, they have toxins in them that can affect our brain. As I started thinking more about those things and how they play a role into my brain health, I was shocked at the difference that it made. I felt like a brand new person.
Bailey Middle School dancers and students will be concluding Celebrate You Week when this interview will be shared. Can you share your thoughts on what it means to celebrate you when it comes to middle school students taking care of their minds and emotions?
I love what you guys have chosen for this week. I think it encompasses so many problems that I see, I know I've gone through, but I see a lot of younger generations go through today. For me, when I was younger, I would compare myself to a chameleon. I would look at all the other students and I would say, okay, they seem to be accepted by acting this certain way, so I'm going to change myself in order to fit in. And I never really had a deep understanding of who I wanted to be, who I was at my core, because I would just change myself depending on whichever group I was around, like a chameleon would. Once I started to realize that no matter, who you are, your journey is always going to look different from your peers, that's when I really truly started to understand that I need to learn who I am and I need to love who I am, because that's going to allow me to achieve the best version of myself and the best version of my life. And it wasn't until I started dealing with physical issues that I realized that, because I was at a point where I was bedridden. So I saw my friends and they were going off to college. They were in relationships, they were getting houses, they were doing all these wonderful things, but I wasn't there yet because I had different obstacles. That's when I really started comparing myself only to myself, because I realized that everybody in their lives is going to have a different journey, and all you can do is put on your horse blinders and focus on your journey while supporting your friends and your family along the way. In other words, I like to compare it to a canvas. I feel like everyone is given a canvas, like a painting canvas when they're younger, and they're given a different set of paint and pastels to paint with, but not everyone is going to have an equal sized canvas or an equal set of pastels. What you do with what you have is you are going to create your own masterpiece of your life, but you're going to do it with whatever colors you have and whatever size canvas you have. And I think that's how you can really achieve that idea of celebrating who you are, is understanding and accepting exactly what your circumstances are and embracing that for the person that you truly are deep down.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.